Hi, everyone. I'm Ian Camacho. I'm the product designer who focuses on the package stage. Normally for these showcases, I like to come in and talk about some of our large scale initiatives that we're talking about on the package stage, whether it's the vision for the dependency proxy category or our big research initiative for jobs to be done. Today, I'd like to take a little bit of a different path and instead zoom in on some pretty small initiatives that we have going on in package that I think do a really good job of showing what it's like to iterate and collaborate inside of the package team. As a quick review, the package stage handles several different registries, and our focus is enabling our users to bundle up code and other dependencies, store them inside of the registries, and then deploy them out to different services, whether that be individual engineers through the CI pipelines or as part of a larger scale deployment. The first of the couple of stories that I'm going to share today revolve around improving the package detail UI. From a business perspective, this is actually a pretty important instance in our user experience because the user interface for package is actually a catalog that shows all of the information stored inside of the registry. And one of our most important aspects and things we need to convey to the user is that you can trust that the registries will operate as you expect them and they're reliable. And so improving the UI and improving that polish really has an impact on creating that sensation and trust for the users. From a user goal, there's also the idea that we want to make sure that when we present this data, it's really easy to consume. It is exactly the data they want in the order that they would expect it to be in. And when something is actionable, we direct them to where they want to go. Currently, if you take a look at our detail page, it could use some love. And we've added some details and kind of created a new epic focused on polishing the package UI in general. This epic has had 14 unique issues that vary in size from remove this line, it's not really important anymore, all the way up to let's redesign this whole section of the page. In this epic, there's also two different tech debt related issues that focus on creating components that we can use and repeat throughout the different interfaces, whether it be a package, for an image, or for an infrastructure module. The data that we're presenting, we feel really confident in, both because we did quantitative and qualitative research in the beginning to really understand what data is important to our users, as well as through solution validation. We showed them this UI and asked, is this data important to you? And gotten really positive affirmation. The current structure of the UI is somewhat rigid and technically accommodates a lot of different package formats. So whether it's an NPM package or a Conan package or a PyPI package, the UI is designed in a way that it can accommodate all of that data. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we need the UI to convey the trust and stability of the package registry. And right now it feels a little different from the rest of GitLab. And while it accommodates all of the different data, it creates kind of a sensation that it's forced in. And that pulls away from that idea that this is reliable, this is stable, this is just as good as the rest of GitLab. One of the things I'd also like to call out is as the team has grown and we've started taking on more packages, we have a much better understanding of all of the different variances and similarities between these different package types. And we wanted to include that in the new UI. So we redesigned it. And I'm pretty excited about it because I think it, just as a designer, I think it looks a lot better. A little bit about the process we went through. It took about 2 weeks for us to initiate the design and go through the iteration process, gathering feedback throughout the whole team. We also shared the design during Packages Think Big, which is an opportunity for the whole team to get together and talk about our vision, talk about the work we're doing. And one of the cool things that was nice about this is that we had all the engineers in a room and we were able to ask, of all of the different package formats that you've worked on, does this new design actually accommodate all of the different data while making it easier to digest? And throughout the process, we had a really close partnership with the front end during the design review process to make sure we were using GitLab components, make sure it was reusable and flexible, and as easy as we could to accommodate all these different things. From the design aspect, I want to call out that one of the big improvements we made was a closer alignment to the package, or sorry, to pajamas. Thinking back to that idea that we need to establish trust by moving towards more pajamas-oriented components, we really reinforce that stability from the rest of GitLab that yes, you can trust that the package stage will store and deliver your package every time. It was really nice to be able to lean on that already created infrastructure. We organized the designs in a way that we had different sections based on the way that the data is oriented. So if you look, we have metadata directly related to the package. So this is what package format is it? What size is it? What project did it come from? We have a different section related to what's the history of this package? Where was it built? What commit is it related to? What pipeline actually ended up building it? And then we move on to a new section about how to install it. How do you set up this registry to be your source, etc. And then we also included this additional metadata section that really helped us accommodate different package formats where NPM doesn't really have any additional metadata. Maven has some very specific extra metadata that we needed to add. And then packages like PyPI have user-generated metadata that we couldn't really accommodate outside of a more flexible format. One thing that we also did is we moved to the one column layout, and that gave us a lot of freedom. We were able to expand vertically whenever new data was involved in the UI, and it made it more mobile friendly just by its default, which really helped. It's not a high priority for a lot of our users, but it was really easy to convert it to a mobile design when looking at it. We also heard feedback, which is always really empowering, that this new UI is going to be better for community contributions. So if a user or an engineer wanted to add a new package format, this new design enabled them to adjust the UI to base this new package. All of that was really exciting news. I have to admit the collaboration between the whole team and getting the whole backend engineers involved in the conversation was really empowering when thinking about this detail. Moving on to a different story, we did an iteration on our cleanup policies. From a business perspective, one of the important things that we wanted to make sure we could enable our users is to help them manage their storage costs. And they needed to be easy for organizations of all size, and regardless of their technical knowledge, be able to implement and save in their storage costs. From a user goal, we really needed to make sure that the technical proficiency needed to enable the cleanup policies helped different organizations of different sizes. So even if you didn't have that very technical DevOps specialized engineer, you could still manage your storage costs for the container. A little bit of background. I think there is a showcase about our MVC for the cleanup policies back in Unfiltered. We got a lot more attention from this from our users than we initially anticipated. We got a lot of feedback. A lot of our users came to us saying we wanted this. And some of these other things were maybe less transparent. And what we realized is there were two main areas to help us improve. One, when we look at the UI text related to this design, it's really technical. And unless you're that very technical individual, it's kind of unapproachable. And given that the cleanup policy removes tags automatically and is a destructive action, it needs to be really clear for everyone. We also got some feedback that there's a very subtle difference between what's being protected or retained and what's being deleted. And some of our users got confused. And that is 100% not the thing our users should be confused about. On top of that, from the design perspective, it's inconsistent with the pajamas guideline. It's using kind of an older style of form and input. And so it's just not quite up to our new standards that we like to employ. So we redesigned it, and this was a really exciting process. It took about 3 weeks to create this new design and go through the iteration process with the whole team. We had a really tight partnership with Tech Writing. We moved over to the pajamas guidelines, and it gave us a little bit more freedom to add a little bit more copy. And I think every designer can kind of relate to the idea that that is empowering and scary at the same time. And so we partnered really close. Really big props to Suzanne for her ability to understand what we were doing and give really valuable feedback around how can we make this more human? How can we make it more friendly so that when people are dealing with removing images from their registry, they feel comfortable and confident that the things getting removed aren't going to be used and the things that are important are being saved. We also were able to get some feedback from our active customers who are involved in issues and been saying, we're struggling with this or we're not understanding this, we brought them over and said, hey, we're redesigning this. What do you think? And it was really cool to see the community around GitLab jump in and say, it would be so great if this was a little bit different, or this is a little confusing, maybe we should clarify here. That was just really empowering as a designer, because I feel confident that this new design really helps users understand what's going on. We also added a couple of UI moments that really provide actionable feedback when a user changes something. So first off, we tell them, when is the next time this cleanup schedule going to run? This helps them know it's going to run every 7 days, and in 3 days is the next time it's going to run, giving them that actionable feedback, as well as creating the ability for them to preview, if this policy were to run today, what tags would be deleted and which would be saved, so that they have a chance to check what's going to happen before it automatically runs in the background. We also made a subtle change where we made it very clear these settings are going to be around what tags are being protected and kept and are important, and these other tags are open to be removed, which our users responded to really well, being able to quickly identify which rule applied to which situation. Last but not least, I want to tell the story of this little UI bug, because I think it is such a great example of what collaboration can look like and how fast we can put something out. A little bit of background: when you have a tag that's added to the registry, every once in a while, you will run into this situation where it's missing an important piece of data called a manifest digest. The technical terms are a little bit for an engineer to answer, and I don't want to be that person, but the gist of it is that without a manifest digest, we don't know what actual blobs of data are important and included in this tag. And so if we're missing that, the image tag really becomes not very useful. Most of the time, that digest is always there, but we discovered every once in a while it's not. So for the background, we're working on a container UI epic that kind of improves the experience of the container registry overall. And we were working on a specific issue that introduced this expandable data well that gave additional really detailed information around this tag, including the manifest digest, the configuration digest, and this explicit terms of what registry was added to it at one time. We were doing robust testing, and we discovered that some tags in the registry actually don't have this digest, and we did not display that at all. And when we started adding this, there became very apparent through what looks like a little bit of a broken UI that some tags don't have these digests. We didn't have a polished way to handle it. And again, when you think back to the package registry and the container registry being all about trust and stability, having this kind of UI breaks that with our users, and that's one of our most important things. So we took finding this bug and we worked through what kind of feels like a normal process. We found it on the front end. We did a technical investigation with the back end. We had a Go engineer who specializes in container registry jump in, figure out what happened. We did some solution design. Here's a couple of ways that we can present this to the user. We broke that down into iterations. Here's an MVC. Here's the smallest thing we can make to enable this. And then here's our future vision of where we can go. And then we implemented a new MR that merged that new solution into code, out to production, helping our users. Always feels really great. From the design aspect, we broke it into 2 iterations. One of them was focused on making it not look broken anymore, which again, we're trying to establish trust. That's really important. So we kind of faked some data and said this has 0 bytes of space, there's no digest, and gave a really subtle warning that just says this is an invalid tag, it's missing its digest. For a second iteration, we expanded upon that, where a user is able to see that larger data well. We more clearly define no manifest digest is associated with this tag. Please try to push another one, as well as creating some documentation around more information of when this happens and what a user can do to prevent it. I hear some of you silently in the back of your mind saying, for such a little bug, why would you share this at a showcase level? And I have to admit, I've been hiding the coolest part of this interaction. One day, from the time that we found this bug in the UI, all the way through design, technical investigation, implementation, and getting merged into code took less than 24 hours. And this is really cool because the timing of when this happened was right before the end of 13.2. And we had just a little bit of an opportunity to make sure that nobody in production actually saw this bug. We were able to implement a solution that just elegantly said, we know this is happening, this is how to do it, move forward. And that was just the coolest experience of being able to be the designer and the backend engineer and the front-end engineer and powering through this, everyone with the motivation of trying to keep the user experience solid and trustworthy. Thank you, everyone. Those are my 3 stories for the day. I have to give a special shout out to Nico and Joam and Suzanne because they were incredible about giving great feedback, being open to conversation, and leading us all to the best designs that we can put out as quickly as we can to enable our users. Thank you, everyone.